We are back here on Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Steve Balsherry and Derek Havens here, your host as always. We are here today, Steve, to talk about Week 18, the final regular season game of the 2025 season. We are recording this on the final day of 2025 here on New Year's Eve. Thank you, everyone who's joining us live. For those who listen later, we appreciate you as well. Our other co-host, Mike Diabate, is MIA, so we are moving forward, Steve, with the preview of this game. Before we get into it, man, how you doing today?
Well, it's been a crazy 24 hours for the Patriots, hasn't it?
Never a dull moment.
Yeah, and as we are fond of saying, there's never a dull moment in Foxborough. I was doing okay until it got dark here, and now with being in Southwest Florida, everyone's shooting off fireworks, and my dog is going insane right now. So when you're talking, I'm going to mute myself so everyone doesn't have to listen to him bark constantly.
Yeah, well, it's all right. We're gonna give him a pass here, So, but getting into this game, Steve, there's gonna be a lot of discussion, obviously, about the ramifications of all these games. Not as much for the Patriots per se, in terms of how it affects really anything else other than the opponent. Week 18. There's gonna be a lot of scoreboard watching. By a lot of teams involved. The Chargers have come out saying they're going to rest their starters, and the Broncos will likely clinch the 1 seed. Patriots, will be the 2 seed, assuming they win. On Sunday, they can go no lower than the 3 seed. So we'll talk about that. It seems very likely, Steve, that we're going to get the Chargers in Foxborough next week for Wild Card Weekend. But we have time to discuss, that option and whoever else the opponent is for next week. For now, we'll focus on just the Dolphins. Before we do that, you alluded to it already. Not the best 24 hours for the Patriots from a media PR standpoint. There was the situation with Christian Barmore, and also a situation involving Stephon Diggs. So 2 of your better players in some not so good water. Steve, give me your reaction to if you want to do both, or pick one, and we'll run with one at a time here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think regardless of how it turns out, and it's just a bad look. This is not the kind of thing that you want your team having to deal with on the eve of the playoffs, right? I mean, but being in New England, we're used to that, right? We're used to stuff popping up out of the blue, right before the playoffs or big games. Look, it's not a good look. I don't know. Nobody knows for sure except the parties involved. If either of the players did what they are accused of, we probably will find out. Maybe not. But again, it's just not a good look. And, especially you're still in play for the 1 seed. And like you alluded to, the chances of them getting it now are, I think, slim to none, because, the Chargers made the decision to rest their guys, which I kind of get it, because they weren't going to improve their draft position regardless. So why risk getting your players hurt, especially – I know the quarterback's been banged up a little bit. So, let them get healthy and get ready to come to Foxborough. It looks like the Patriots will end up playing the Chargers should they win on Sunday, which I believe both of us, think is going to happen. So, but you never know. The Patriots, I remember them spitting the bit late in the season against Miami a couple of years ago. That happened to be in Miami, but they did not play well in that particular game. So we'll have to see, But I do think that, it's not a good look for Stephon Diggs or Christian Barmore. I understand there's, he said, she said type of thing, but you never want to see any of this
Sure.
happening.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I think, starting with Stephon Diggs, I mean, look, as far as I understand, he comes with baggage, and we knew that when he was signed from the beginning. At the same time, by pretty much all accounts or many accounts, he has been a very good teammate, a vocal leader, and a good voice in that locker room. He's been productive. I mean, the gotta have it throws. And I'm not comparing the connections. I'm just saying there's a level of trust here. The gotta have it throws for Drake May when he needs a third down ball. It's going to Diggs. It's like when everyone knew it was going to Edelman when Brady had the ball on third down and it was got to have it play. They're going to go to a guy where they trust that's going to make a play and get open. And for May, he relies on Diggs heavily in those big time situations. I don't, obviously if he is, guilty of anything, that is a totally that's a totally different conversation. Obviously, it's not the downplay. At the same time, it is a he said, she said situation. So I wouldn't expect anything for him missing football games in the time being while it's all sorted out. Some people have brought up the commissioner's exempt list. I just don't see how you do that in this situation. With just based on what's being public now. As far as Barmore goes, again, not another good situation there, but it is being reported that the woman who is the accuser for Barmore is actually his girl. I think it's girlfriend, but they are apparently back together. So it seems like, based on Christian Barmore's attorney's statement, that things are going to be resolved and they plan to move forward together. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But Steve, these are the kind of conversations that coaches don't want, surrounding the team. Ownership doesn't want their team affiliated with these kind of things. And it's not what people want to be talking about leading up to the playoffs after a great run. So not a good 24 hours. I do think these things will be forgotten about very quickly here and move forward on until, if there is more negative things, then we'll address it then. But from right now, there's just a lot of, allegations and accusations, and there's not as much evidence to really, go anywhere else with it right now.
Yeah, I muted myself here. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And look, right now everyone's in the dark. We're in the dark. We don't know. And, we'll just have to see where the chips fall. And, but in the meantime, they have a very important game to play on Sunday. And, against a division rival, which always kind of throws a monkey wrench into things when you're looking at the grand scheme of things.
Right. I would say that the Dolphins are significantly more of a challenge than the Jets, although I would still think that this is a game the Patriots should win. I would say I wouldn't say relatively handily. I do think there's issues with guys. There's certain guys in that team that you have to account for. They can make you pay. But to me, I think you have to look at, the Dolphins is more of someone who could really knock you off if you don't show up. If the Patriots just go in to punch the time cards, it's going to be an issue this weekend. But if they just show up and just take care of business, I think it's one of those things where it's going to be, as they would say, 1, 2, 3 Cancun for the Dolphins, and they're all they're hitting the tee box, sometime next week as everyone else is gearing up for the postseason.
Yeah, and look, the Dolphins would like nothing better to throw a monkey wrench into their division rival, right? And they have, Achane, who is having a fantastic year. He's
a tremendous player, so explosive.
Yeah, 5.8 yards per carry. And we know the Patriots have been struggling to stop the run. So he is a potential, monkey wrench, in the grand scheme of things, and that's something they'll have to watch out for. The Dolphins have, after a 1-6 start, they've turned things around. I'm not going to say they've completely turned it around, but they're playing a lot better than they were early in the season. And, they might have something. And the young quarterback, he's played pretty well. Ewers from Texas. So we'll have to see. I mean, but this isn't a game that they can just go out there and figure they're going to go through the motions, which we don't expect that anyway with Mike Vrabel as the head coach. So we know that they're going to come in and try to take care of business, but it's not going to be a walk in the park, I don't believe, unless they get off to a fast start. I think if they get off to a fast start, then Miami will start booking their vacations, right? But if this is, a close game at halftime, that's the kind of thing where you have to start getting concerned, right? That's how I'm looking at this game. But I think if you get off to a fast start, similar to what they did last week, not saying to that extent, but at that point, I think Miami, then they started looking at tea time.
Yeah, so I mean, again, we're recording this Wednesday. Earlier, the teams put out practice reports, Steve, and injury reports after practice. And so Devin A-Chain, Jordan Brooks, Minka Fitzpatrick, Chop Robinson, Jalen Waddle, and Darren Waddle for the Dolphins. Some pretty important players on that list, Steve. All DNPs did not participate. A couple of guys limited, a couple of guys full participation. So there's some key players in that for the Patriots as well. Barmore, Henry, Landry, Spillane, Tonga, Westover, Wilson. Wilson is still in concussion protocol, by the way. So those guys are all DNP for the Patriots. So there's some big names on this list. The sense from I've gotten from just this is just by simply taking in some of the beat writers, some of the people that we talk to and listen to and take in, as a lot of our listeners do. I think that the feel I'm getting from the Mike Reeses and the Evan Lazars and some of these guys, those are just two guys in a few, is that that if you're healthy, you're gonna play this game and at least start it. I mean, I do think there's an element of scoreboard watching, and I think if Vrabel starts seeing guys start to drop with injuries, he might just go ahead and rein it in, because there is a fine balance there. But Steve, for me, I think guys, someone like Will Campbell, to me, if he's healthy, I would at least play him a couple of series, or at least maybe even the first half. Give him some reps. You can throw him in cold in the playoffs if you want to. But for me, that's just one guy that I'm going to use as an example. I want to see him get some. I want to see him get some stuff there. And then, you also have Milton Williams limited. For the injury report, I'd put him in that same conversation as well. He hasn't played over a month, and I just think these guys need those two guys specifically need some reps, kind of knock the rust off a little bit, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm in total agreement with you here. If these guys are able to go, you want them to get a couple of snaps in, just to get the rust off, because you don't want their first snaps in a game after a month off due to injury being in a playoff game. I mean, that's not the best way. So if you can get these guys, just even if they're completely healthy, right, just get them a little bit of work to get, knock the rust off. And that's I think that would be the best way to handle them. Alex Austin might be in that
yes, thank you very much
as well. So we'll have to see. But I think, look, if you're healthy, you should be playing in this game because you still have something to play for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely should. This is a good question over from Chris. Chris Goodwin, who always writes in. Chris, Happy New Year, my friend. He said it's already 2026 on the other side of the water there. So, Chris, shout out to you, my friend. Thank you for listening. He asked a good question, though. Will this be the last time the Patriots see Mike McDaniel, Steve?
I don't think so. I think, the Dolphins ownership has made it clear they like him, and I think he's probably doing enough here at the end of the season to survive. I think at next year he'll probably have a semi-short leash. I think he wouldn't survive another start like they get off to this season. But I'm surprised he's still here. Honestly, with the start they get off to, I thought at 1-6 that he would have been dead man walking, so to speak. But hey, the ownership seems to like him. Um, they have a lot of questions coming up at the end of the game on Sunday because what are they going to do with Tua? I mean, are they going to eat $99 million? I don't know. It's going to be one of those tough questions, and I think him. I think his seat has to be warm regardless.
Yeah, I think that with McDaniel, you said it, Steve. I think he did enough at the end of this season to stay. If it had kept going south, I think you're probably having a different conversation. But I'm starting to think that they're realizing that there's some other issues. The front office as a whole, I think they're realizing there's some other issues going on with some of the team. The team building, which is part of the reason why Chris Greer needed to go anyway, as the former GM too, before they moved on to was it Chris Kelly, Champ Kelly? I want to say, yeah, Champ Kelly. So, I mean, look, if you're the Dolphins, not to turn this into, Dolphins no huddle, but I would say they've hit on some good players in the draft. It's just about, is Tua their guy moving forward? And I think that's the big thing for them. I have a hard time believing they're even going to move on from Tua this offseason. I think that they try to fix some things around the roster and give McDaniel and Tua one more year before they maybe go in a totally different direction at quarterback and at coach, Steve.
Yeah, I don't see how they can just eat, almost $100 million, right, for
Yeah.
Tua. But at the same time, I mean, he's regressed. You go back a couple of years ago, he was lighting it up, right, and he still had the talent around him. They just weren't getting it done, and he was turning the ball over at a terrible rate. And I understand, McDaniels, decided, okay, we're going to sit him and bring in the young kid. But at the same time, I think McDaniel has to take some of that blame as well because he's the guy calling the offense, right? Tua isn't calling his own plays, and Miami has always they've always had that reputation as a team with a lot of speed, but they're not very physical, and that's why they kind of fade at the end of the year. Like right now, they're coming up to New England in the cold. They're a notoriously bad cold weather team, and they have been for several years. So, um, it's it's like a perfect storm type of thing where everything seems to, either go right or go wrong for them. And right now, Tyreek Hill only played like 4 games, and now they're going to move on from him. Are they going to move on from Tua? I don't know. I mean, that's going to be the question. I would still draft a quarterback regardless
I
because
would too. I would too, but Steve, I don't know if I would do it in the first round. Um, I think you look at it like you said. If you're not gonna eat that 100 million, you're gonna say, okay, Tua's regressed, but you don't want to eat it. It's like, yeah, you can roll the dice and see if you can take someone in maybe in day two. But I think you got to look at it and say, if you're going to run it back with McDaniel and Tua, at least for another year, you got to build up around him make sure that there's enough support there, not only to get a firm evaluation on Tua, so for your decision next offseason, but also if the decision is to move on from Tua, that whoever's going to replace him is walking into a good situation. It can go both ways. So I have to think that it's hard for them to just totally turn the page. I'd be shocked. The Dolphins, by all accounts, were heavy favorites to be the second team in the AFC East division and be knocking on the door of the playoffs. The fact that they are in the situation they're in really speaks to how poorly things were going for them, early and midway throughout the year. Again, they did flip a switch, and that's a testament to them for kind of turning it on a bit, making things competitive. But there's definitely a lot of questions for them going into it. Again, I want to thank everyone who's listening live to this edition of Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Please do subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you can like, share, and leave us a review, that keeps us high in those notifications. Help other Patriots fans find us. Steve Balsherry and Derek Cave is here as your host tonight as Mike Diabate. Still seeing if he's going to hop on, but if he does not, we will be back to go ahead and break down this Dolphins game and the wild card game, probably here just shortly after the weekend, Steve. But enough talking about the Dolphins from a front office coaching standpoint, although that was a good question by Chris. Mm-hmm. So thank you for contributing to that, Chris, as always. I think that if you're looking at this, Devin A. Chain to me, Steve, is the biggest thing that I'm worried about. You take Christian Gonzalez, assuming that Waddle plays, and you just make sure that Gonzalez stays with Waddle more often than not. And to me, I'm looking at the Patriots need to shut down Devin A. Chain and make sure that he does not control his game with explosive plays. You alluded to starting fast. The last thing you want is the Dolphins to get a spark out of a big A-chain play or a good pass to Waddle down the field to get up some chunk yards, some momentum, and all of a sudden you're in a game-long 60-minute dogfight. What you're really hoping to do is make the offense look like it can't get any big chunk plays, and then Drake May can do his thing, put the team in a comfortable 2-score lead, and then kind of coast throughout. Because I do think the Dolphins will shut it down by halftime or so if the game goes similarly to how it did with the Jets. Again, not anticipating that kind of a blow up per se, but I do think if the Patriots take control early, it's a huge indicator of what the rest of the game is going to be like. But I could see it going the flip side if the Dolphins can get off to a hot start.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're looking for, right? Is look, start fast, get the offense going, and then take them out of the running game, right? Put them in a position where they have to throw. Now you have a young quarterback who only played in a couple of games, 2 starts. He's appeared in 3 games, and then you're putting all the onus on him, and you're taking Achane out of the game without having to stop him from running the ball because they're in a situation where they have to throw. So, I mean, if you're the Patriots, that's the scenario you want. And look, the way the offense is going, even with the guys that are out right now, they were firing on all cylinders. Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry. I know Henry didn't practice today, but I would assume he's going to play. They probably get Kayshon Boutte back. Demario Douglas should be a little more healthy this week. They have the people that can step up. And, Efton Chisholm, kudos to him for last week, right? 2 catches, 40 yards, his first NFL touchdown. Kyle Williams. So they have the people to stress that Dolphins defense, and I think that will be the game plan. The Dolphins, I thought, did a great job last week in the running game against Tampa. Held their running backs to only like 39 yards, I believe it was, or something similar to that. So the running game might be a little more stressed this week, but I think the Patriots' passing game should be able to find a lot of open space.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins running game will be interesting this week. Earlier in the year, you had A Chain 11 carries, 30 yards. You had Malik Washington run 3 for 23. You had Ollie Gordon the second, 1 carry, 8 yards. But if you go to the passing game, A Chain, Hill when he was healthy, and then Waddle both had some damage. A Chain 8 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. That's something that needs to be a priority there. Again, I can see if you go back to the September 14th match, the Dolphins were winning 20-15 at halftime. And so that's the kind of game I really think that they want to avoid. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about. But I'm curious to see how the game planning is, what the strategy is for the team. Is it just going to be kind of business as usual? And I do think that's going to be the case, as you said, Steve. There's just too much on the line because you never know. The Chargers, does it look likely the Broncos are going to be the 1 seed? Absolutely. But until that door is really closed, you can't just play it softly. Going ahead and getting that automatic bye would be huge, not only for the rest, also for securing an advancement to the next round of the playoffs before that playoffs have even begun.
Yeah, I mean, look, and even though the Chargers are going to arrest a bunch of people, right? It's still a divisional game. And you always get kind of leery in divisional games. That's why we're leery about this Dolphins game, right? And you go back. I mean, look last week. Pittsburgh could have wrapped up their division by beating the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns ended up winning the football game on Monday night. The Rams had everything going for them, and they were playing the Falcons, who were already eliminated. Falcons looked like a playoff team on Monday night. I mean, I thought if the Falcons had played like that in some of their other close losses, they might be on the cusp of the playoffs themselves. So you never know what's going to happen. That's why I believe the Patriots will be all hands on deck, and they'll play it by ear and see what happens.
Absolutely. Getting into, I guess, what concerns you most from what the Dolphins do defensively. Anything that jump out to you?
Yeah, getting after the quarterback. Bradley Chubb had a couple of sacks of Baker Mayfield last week. They can get after the quarterback and stop drives by getting some sacks, and so that's one of the things you have to look out for. I do believe that the Patriots can pass on that secondary, but at the same time, Drake May is going to need time, and the protection's going to have to hold up. So that to me is the key. And like I said, I think the Dolphins they can do a really good job, as we saw last week, of stopping the run. And that when they make a team one dimensional, you never know what's going to happen at that point. So defensively, what Miami can do, I think the main thing is getting after the quarterback. So the protection will have to hold up well this week. And I think if it does, the Patriots will be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that for the Patriots, protecting the quarterback is obviously, excuse me, number one. And I think that the offensive line, you got to worry about just from a health standpoint. I do think that they are going to continue to just run the same spread it around type offense and try to control the game with the ground. I'd be a little, I guess I shouldn't be, I wouldn't be shocked if someone aside from Stevenson and Henderson got some, some good carries this week, just because of, just to kind of ease the workload while still emphasizing the running game to kind of, slow down that Miami pass rush, and then also, kind of grind the game down a little bit and, keep that explosive at times Miami offense,
Sure.
kind of on the sidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think Josh McDaniels will be looking at, a lot of ways to get a lot of people involved. And I agree with you. I think Dearness Johnson will get some carries in this game. And I would love to see Travion Henderson have a couple more explosive plays. Ramondre Stevenson's been, he's been on a roll the past couple of weeks. He's been, playing really well. He's had over 100 combined yards the last two games, and that is the kind of trend you want to see heading into the playoffs. I look for him, to be a factor in the passing game again this week.
Yeah, going back, so I'm going to start in week 17, and I'll go for the previous 4 games. So go 5 weeks because the bye week was there, but the previous 4 games, starting in week 13, at home versus the Giants, 12 carries, 40 rush yards, three catches on 3 targets, and 40 yards again on the ground. Bye week 14, then versus the Bills. 6 carries, 50 yards, 3 catches, 3 targets, again, 27 yards. We go to then against the Ravens, 8 for 51, a touchdown, then 2 catches and 27 yards again through the air, then 8 for 47, a touchdown versus the Jets. Caught all 5 passes that were thrown to him, 55 yards and another touchdown. So it's been continuous the last month. He's coming on at just when they needed him most. And they're going to need him continuously to keep that offense balanced, because with Drake being so good, with the play action and the ability of his legs, it gives McDaniels more creativity with the offense and using some misdirection for the defense to their strength. So being able to utilize that run game not only goes ahead and keeps the score down where the Patriots want it, which is right in that low to mid 20s, because if they can hold their opponent to those low 20 area like they've been doing so well, I feel very good in them in those kind of situations. It's when the score starts creeping up into the 30s. We've seen them have success, but you also see that you get into some if you start getting into a shootout type game. You saw it in the second go around with Buffalo. That's when things can get messy and turn around for you quickly, and that's why those explosive plays, limiting them for the Patriots defense, is going to be so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the defense, hopefully they'll get some of these guys back this week. And, I would like to see them get back on track the way they were earlier in the season, especially against the run. Their numbers have been steadily increasing, with the average amount allowed per game. But they're still a top 10 rush defense, although I would not consider them a top 10 rush defense right now. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But at one time they were number 1 for several weeks, and then it's been steadily creeping up. I believe they're number 8 right now against the run. So, but yeah, that's the kind of scenario I would like to see. Especially, you get Milton Williams back. I don't know if Spillane will play. It doesn't sound like it, at least today, but we'll see what happens.
I'm with you. Give me a score prediction, Steve, for week 18 as the team closes it out.
Yeah, I think they hold serve. I think they score some points. I think they win this one 31-17.
31-17. I am going slightly different. I'm gonna go 27-19. So I'm going to go a lot of field goals. The defense will hold the Dolphins too. But figure someone will break out sooner than later, probably on the ground for the Dolphins. But I do think the Patriots will be able to control most of the game. I don't think it's going to be as comfortable again, but I do think it's going to be one of those games where it feels like they just have both their hands on the reins for the majority of it. So that's what I'm predicting as of now. Steve, any final thoughts on the Patriots regular season to this point? Obviously, we are going to recap our thoughts on the season as a whole as well, give our breakdown on the game, and talk about who the Patriots will be playing all our next couple of shows for, as we lead up to the playoffs. But any final thoughts here as we wrap up today for the 2025 regular season?
Yeah, I mean, look, when we were doing our shows back in January, right, when they hired Mike Vrabel, we were just hoping for respectability, and we were thinking, hey, look, I think if he does a great job and they hit on the free agents that they were targeting, they might compete for a wild card spot. Who knew, at week 17 that have 13 wins playing for 14. I think that, this season has been kind of a magical one for them. And look, when it all comes down to Drake May. I know that the controversy over the MVP is so political, but look, say what you want about the Patriots scheduling and whatnot. He has been incredible, regardless of who they've been playing. And, at the beginning of the season, the Patriots skill position guys were considered one of the worst in the league. And you look at them now, I don't think people are considering them one of the worst, but I still don't think people are, putting them on a pedestal of like, oh, the Patriots skill position guys are top 10. I don't think that anyone believes that. So you have to give so much credit to Drake May this year. He has really, upped his game. We talked about making that second year jump. I think he leapt over tall buildings with a single bound.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the analysis of the MVP kind of keeps working itself out. But it is definitely political. It's going to be interesting to see how people vote on it. I think it is a 2-horse race, but between May and Stafford, obviously, and I think Drake ultimately does take it. I think that people are looking more at metrics, and we've seen the conversations in years past, just like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. This year, it's not always about certain stats, more than others per se. It can also be things like people around you, etc. Other players around the respective MVP candidate. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all breaks down. But I heard Albert Breer talk about on 98.5 the other day that essentially, to paraphrase, he was saying that a lot of the writers sometimes if it's a close race, they might pick player A for MVP, but player B, they might list it at first team, quarterback, just to kind of help balance it out if they're kind of torn, kind of split their vote, quote unquote. Not that everyone does that, but he said that some people do. And I think I could see a scenario like that happen. But again, I just think even my takeaway, Steve, for one, you already said it, talked about where the expectations were for this team and what they've accomplished. To win at least 13 games in the regular season is a huge accomplishment. The fact that they can get to 10 wins over last year is just incredible. But, really the final thought goes to the MVP thing is, regardless of what happens in terms of if Drake May wins the MVP or not, he's in the conversation. It's getting a lot of national notice. And you might be the person, this is a general, you might be the person that doesn't care about the award. I'll say that's fine. What I would say, though, it is a big deal because it players recognize these things. And if you're a team that's wanting to attract more talent and other players when they become available by trade, and you have the money or the assets to acquire them, you want to be able to present to that free agent you desire, hey, we have a young stud franchise MVP caliber quarterback at the helm of our team. That does speak volumes. And, for people that want to bring in more talent at the receiver position, it helps when they know Drake May's throwing them the ball. And it's been a reason in the last couple of years, reportedly, that the Patriots were off some people's list, specifically because that question, wasn't Tom, or the answer to that question wasn't Tom Brady under center. They weren't sure what they were going to have. So I think it's good news whether he comes first in MVP or runner up, I still think it's good for the team moving forward because he's getting recognition on a national level, and that's exciting if you're a Patriots fan.
Absolutely. And, it's funny you mentioned that because, one of the things that some free agents that they tried to attract, um, in the past didn't come here because they didn't believe in the Patriots quarterback situation.
Right.
I don't think anyone feels like that anymore.
No.
I saw a thing with Puka Nacua, um, where they were asking about the MVP, and of course he's going to say his quarterback, right, Matthew Stafford. But he said Drake May is a stud. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Well, they asked him. I think they asked him if they thought list top, their top 3 quarterbacks in the league right now.
He thinks May is a top 3 quarterback.
Yeah, and I think I want to say he said that, the term, Drake May is balling right now, and again,
and that's for a guy from the NFC who, so Drake May is getting attention.
And you can look at it too, Steve, and there'd be people who are, who are older, who don't put a lot of attention to some of these podcasts from whatever website or content creators or whatever, but guess what? The young players that are coming into the league, they are into that, and the people who are, the agents and all these people's friends, players' friends, they see one of the best receivers in the game right now talking about your quarterback as absolutely a stud. That does carry weight. People can say they ignored the noise or whatever. They hear these things, they see these things, they get it easily. Then whether they're looking for it or not, it's going to fall into their lap. So yeah. I do think it carries a good amount of weight.
And to the point you made earlier, I watched the Pats podcast, I think it is, with Phil Perry.
Yep.
And Phil was talking about this same scenario last year where Tom Curran at that time still had a AP vote for MVP. And Tom Curran thought that Lamar Jackson actually had a better year, but he voted for Josh Allen because he said he did more with less last year, because Allen, they didn't have 1,000-yard receiver last year. And, Cook wasn't quite the runner he was this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said Tom voted for offensive player of the year. He gave it to Lamar Jackson.
Right.
You could see a similar situation play out with some voters like that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know, I'm a member of the Pro Football Writers of America. We have our own vote. Now, it doesn't mean, anything in the grand scheme of things, but, at the end of Sunday's games, we'll be getting the ballot in the email to where, we're going to make all the on-field votes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Definitely. I totally agree. But, again, it's exciting. Again, even if you don't care about the award, if you care about the team, which you do in all likelihood, if you're listening or watching this content here, it's good. It's good for your football team. If we started this year talking about things that are bad from an optical perspective, in terms of perception, this is positive news that's going to go ahead and give a lot of good momentum heading into a very important offseason for the team. And we'll get to all that later because I can't wait to break down. Steve and I had one of our offline shows that we really should just hit record and publish anyway yesterday, when we were talking about team needs already and how we want to go ahead and attack the offseason. We're going to sit on that until when the time is right. But for now, he's Steve Balsherry. I'm Derek Havens. I want to thank everyone who listened to this episode of Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by Pats Fans. Please do subscribe to us on Apple or Spotify. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the comment section so other Patriots fans can find us. Be sure to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. We are going to be back shortly after the game to do a recap and preview the upcoming opponent the Patriots will be seeing in the wild card, unless they can clinch that 1 seed this week. Shout out to Mike Diabate. He'll be here next time, and we'll see you guys here in a few days. Go Pats. Happy New Year.
Happy New